Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome back to my channel. I'm on a journey in 2024 to get my NetGalley shelf under control. I've made it a goal this year to get my ratio up to 80%, and to help keep me accountable in achieving that goal, I've decided to do monthly reading vlogs where I dedicate some time to reading some of my NetGalley arcs. Today I'm starting my February one. My January one was very much a success. I had 2 4-star reads and a 5-star read. Can't get much better than that, to be honest, for me at least, who is a very critical book reader. And I'm excited for this month as well. I've got 3 arcs picked out. This month it's going to be 2 backlisted books and then a February 2024 thriller release. And I think these are all going to be fun and enjoyable books. I have very high expectations for one, but the other 2, no idea what to expect, but I think they'll be a good time. Fingers crossed, hopefully. My goal is to read at least 3 NetGalley arcs every single month of this year. I think if my math is correct, this will get me to 80%, an 80% feedback ratio, but we'll see if I end up being able to get there. I just looked, my current NetGalley ratio is at 66%, so last month I read 4 arcs actually, but I received 1. So I reviewed all 4 books and my ratio went up by 1%. So love that for me, but we'll see if I can get it up to 68% by the end of this reading vlog after I review these books on NetGalley. But let me go ahead and pull up my quick list of books I'll be reading for this vlog. They are all different genres this month. I've got a fantasy, a thriller, and a contemporary romance, I think is what the third one is, but we will see. So the first book I'll be reading for this vlog is The Resort by Sarah Ox. This is a thriller that comes out this month. I will have the exact date on the screen. It might already be out by the time that this video comes out, not sure, but it will be a new or upcoming or very recent release by the time this vlog comes out. But this is my first book. It's thriller. I think I got a widget for it, which is why I have it on my NetGalley shelf. We'll see how it goes. I've really enjoyed most of the thrillers that I've read so far this year, so I think that this will be a fun one. I also plan to read Forestfall by Lyndall Clipstone. I read the author's debut, Lake's Edge, which is the first book in this duology. This is the sequel. It came out, I don't know when. We'll also have the pub date up here, either last year or in 2022, at the very end of 2022. I don't quite know. This is the sequel to the first book in the duology. I just reread the first book, did a review video for it, loved it, 5 stars. So this is the book that I have very high expectations for, but this is very much backlisted. I have an arc of it. I have a physical copy as well. I need to get to it finally, and it's gonna be for this video. And then finally I will be reading Yes and I Love You by Ronnie Lauren. I think this is a series, and I definitely saw this book and its sequel, which I believe has a blue cover, going around when they first were released a couple of years ago. I want to say back in 2020 is when Yes and I Love You came out, but this is one of my oldest NetGalley arcs, so it's time to get it read. I've got a new thriller release, which is at the very top of my NetGalley shelf. Forestfall is kind of in the middle of when it was released, and then the final book, Yes and I Love You, is at the very bottom pretty much of my NetGalley shelf. So should be a fun vlog if you're into any of these genres, but not all of them. Like, I've got a little bit of something for you. Hopefully I've got a thriller, romance, and fantasy, so I think there'll be a little bit of something in here for everybody, or for most people, hopefully. But I'll hop back in here. I think I'm going to start with Forestfall, which is the sequel to, again, a book that I loved. I want to read this while the first book is still sort of fresh in my mind, since I read Lake's Edge 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'll probably go ahead and start with Forestfall, dive into it this weekend. I've got no plans. The goal is to read a bunch. We'll see. Dive into Forestfall. I'll give you all 50% updates. I won't spoil too much, but I will have the review of Lake's Edge linked above for y'all. But I do have high hopes for this. I'm afraid it's not going to end how I want it to end based off the first book, but we'll see. If it makes me cry, like, that's great. I think I might, depending on what happens with these characters. But I'll go ahead and update y'all when I get to 50% of this book. Let's get my NetGalley ratio up to 80%. It's It's an adventure. Let's do this. I will hop back in here in a couple of days, hopefully, with my first update. This is Future Island, who is fighting a cold, and I was editing this video and realized how terrible my 50% update for Forestfall was. So to just sum up what I was saying in that clip, pretty much I was bummed out because I wasn't enjoying it as much as I loved the first book, and I didn't love the whole love triangle aspect that was being introduced, which it was introduced kind of in the first book, but was more explored in this book in a way that made me very upset. I also think that Violetta is kind of annoying. Like I thought in the first book, but she grew on me, and I kind of feel as though she's just not my favorite person in this book. However, I love Rowan. He's the best. At 50%, I was just feeling bored and frustrated, and I think you'll hear more about that when I finish the book. So I finished reading Forestfall a couple of hours ago. I'm giving this book 3 stars. I definitely feel as though this is a case of when the sequel doesn't hold up to the first book, and I'm super bummed about it. I don't know why I feel so dissatisfied by this book, but I just didn't love it, unfortunately. I don't know if I just felt disconnected from the story, or if there was just too much going on and too many kind of like twists in the plot with the characters and what Violetta was doing. I also think that she's a super not likable character in this book, which is a bummer because I did grow to like her in the first book. But I feel as though in this book, Forestfall, she's not super honest a lot of the time, and I get that she's trying to save things and get life back to quote-unquote normal, but I just didn't find her likable by any means. I kind of feel as though she reverted back to her annoying self that I was annoyed by in the first book. So I feel as though that played a large role as well in why I wasn't loving it. It was definitely a chore, I guess, to read this book. I didn't really want to pick it up, but I wanted to finish off the duet. I've needed to read this book for forever. I can't physically DNF books. It's very rare that I DNF, so I couldn't do that. And I did want to wrap up the duology. I'm just very bummed that I didn't love this book. I will say that Rowan, who is our other main character that we follow in this book, is my favorite. I do love him very much. And I kind of feel as though he deserves better than Violetta, but also they both kind of consider themselves to be monsters, so maybe they are perfect for each other, but I do love Rowan. So it was fun to kind of get to know more about him in this book and follow his POV for a good chunk of it, because in the first book we only follow Violetta, so I did like that a lot. But this book is done. Bummed I didn't love it more, but 3 stars. Not awful. I did like it. Parts of it. The ending was good. There were just several things that bugged me, but Rowan is amazing. But since I finished this one, I think I'm gonna go ahead and jump into The Resort, which is the thriller that I have that comes out this month if it hasn't already come out. By the time I'm doing this update, I don't know if it's out yet or not. I have been really vibing with ebooks recently, so I am very grateful to NetGalley and Kindle Unlimited for giving me so many books to read, because I've been having a good time with them recently. But I'll update y'all when I get to 50% of the way through this one. I literally have zero idea what it's about. I think I have an arc of this one because I got a widget for it from the publisher. So sometimes when I get them and the book looks interesting, I'll just click download and not actually look into what it's about by any means. So that was the case with this one, but I'll hop back in here 50% of the way through the book and share an update. Hopefully I like this book better than the first one, but we will see. I've officially made it a good chunk of the way through The Resort. My last update was yesterday, and I dove right into my second book. I'm not quite 50% of the way through, but between like work tomorrow and then going straight to class and then work again on Tuesday, I thought I might have time to read. I do tend to read while I put my kids down for nap time in the afternoon. So I was like, well, I can probably get to 50% tomorrow while I do that, but I didn't know if I would have time to update before class. and then not getting home until late, and then going right to work on Tuesday morning, and then patting my kids again for nap time. I figured I would probably be able to get past 50% in like those 2 sittings. So I wanted to go ahead and do my update now. That way I can just read tomorrow and Tuesday at work. 50% of the way through this one. I am enjoying it so far. I am a little bit confused or wanting more context, but that might just be like the nature of having multiple POVs and secrets and pasts that we don't know about. But this is a thriller that takes place on an island in Thailand. It's a resort island. This woman named Cass works as a dive instructor. So we follow her POV. She has a very traumatic past. Something happened that we don't know about. 2 of her family members ended up dead. I guess people blamed her. And so she moved to this island and reinvented herself. And then we also followed this other girl named Brooke, who is a social media influencer. We don't really know what led her to the island, other than the fact that she really had nowhere else to go. And we follow them as they're at this resort where Cass lives and Brooke is staying long term, and a dead body is found one night after a full moon party. So we rotate back and forth between Cass's POV and Brooke's POV, trying to figure out if what happened to this girl was a murder, was it actually an accident like the police are saying it is the resort owner paying the police off? That is what Brooke believes, and there's just a lot of mystery and secrets right now. I do feel as though there's something missing. I don't know quite what that is yet. I'm very interested in what is going on. I feel as though there is something in my brain that hasn't quite clicked, or I'm like starkly reminded at various parts in the book that we're not getting the full truth here about both of these girls, this dead body, what happened to another girl who fell off a mountain before Brooke came to the island. There's just a lot of like secrets going on, and maybe once we start getting those cleared up, things will make sense in my brain. I'm very intrigued by this one. I am very much enjoying it, but I'll be interested to see where it ends up going, because I do feel as though there are a lot of secrets, and I don't know if it'll be like too much in the end to be believable, but we'll see what ends up happening. But that's this one so far. I am liking it. I don't know if it's the author's debut or not, but I have been seeing it around Bookstagram. It did come out on the 6th, so I am late in reading this one, but at least I'm reading it during release month still. It's better than most of the arcs that I have on my NetGalley shelf, but I'll hop back in here when I finish reading the book. Hopefully we'll end up giving it a good rating. So far it's fun. I'm just not quite sure what to expect by the end of it, but I'll hop back in here in a couple of days to wrap this book up and start my final NetGalley book for the month of January and stay on track to achieve my NetGalley goal of getting to an 80% feedback ratio by the end of the year. I just realized that I never hopped back in here a couple days ago to update y'all when I did finish The Resort, but I have officially finished it as of Valentine's Day, which was a couple of days ago, and I also gave this book 2 stars. So far this NetGalley vlog has not been as successful as my January one, but it's fine. I finished reading The Resort, and there were a lot of things about it that I just don't think lined up super well or made logical sense. I understand that this is fiction, but I do feel as though in fiction, like, things have to be believable to a certain extent, and in this book I just didn't find that to be the case a lot of times. We follow our 2 main characters, Cass and Brooke, and there's a lot of disconnect between their thoughts about each other. There are a lot of thrillers out there that kind of implant hints about the truth throughout the book without making things like super obvious, but I didn't feel as though that happened at all in this book. I think there was a lot of things missing that should have been introduced or hinted at near the beginning of the book, and as we got further into it that just were not introduced at all until the very end. So when things kind of came to light and plot twists happened, I was just kind of confused and annoyed, and I actually rolled my eyes a few times because I didn't think that the setup was there at all to make those twists and those plot changes make sense or make them surprising. to the point where I was interested in what had ended up happening. I also think that the epilogue, or the final chapter, was very out there and did not make sense to me at all based off everything else that we read in the book. So overall, it just made for a very frustrating read, I have to say. And maybe, you know, my perspective of this is kind of blurred because I read it on Valentine's Day, which was a really hard day, so I was already mad and upset after work and like just laid in bed mad and finished reading it, so I just got even more mad from my starting point of anger when I had gotten home from work. But 2 stars to this one, just not a fan, unfortunately, and I don't think it was that great of a thriller, but that's just me. This book did come out on February 6th, so it has been out for a couple of weeks, and as much as I wish I had loved it, I did not, unfortunately, but it's fine. I have not yet written my review for this one or Forestfall, but I need to do that this weekend is the goal. So there's that. But because I did end up finishing The Resort, that means I can jump into my 3rd and final book for this NetGalley vlog, which is going to be Yes and I Love You. I have my arc downloaded on my Kindle app, so I'll be starting it soon. And I don't know, hopefully I enjoy it. It is the first in a series, I think. I just don't know if it's an interconnected series or just companion novels. So that'll be fun to discover, but I need to read it because I have an arc of it. So who knows if I'll continue the series afterward, but I do need to get to this one. So that is the plan. I have literally no idea what it's about. I just know that I've had it on my shelf for years and years now, so I am going to jump into it pretty blind, but I will come back here at 50% with a synopsis update in my thoughts. Hopefully I find a good book in this vlog in Yes and I Love You, because I'll be really sad if this vlog ends up being a bust in terms of my enjoyment, but at least I'm checking NetGalley things off my list, so I can't complain about that. But I'll hop back in here in a couple of days, hopefully, with my next update. Fingers crossed. I actually like this book. I'm so glad that I picked this book for my NetGalley vlog this month because I am so loving it. I reached the 50% mark in Yes and I Love You a couple of hours ago, and I think it is so much fun. I think I was expecting this book to be more of like just a contemporary women's literature book, but it's actually a contemporary romance, and I'm obsessed. We follow Holland, who is a young woman who is living in New Orleans. She does freelance work but has been given this opportunity to be promoted in this magazine that she works for. She reviews movies and entertainment things around the area for this pretty popular magazine, and she works under an alias. She has Tourette's and she doesn't love being around people. She struggles with making friends. She feels as though she is super awkward, and because of that she doesn't love putting herself out there. But she ends up meeting this guy named Jasper, I think is his name, who is a new coffee guy at the building in which she works, and he is super outgoing, kind of talks before he thinks about it, and they end up forming kind of a, what's the word? An unlikely, I guess, kind of friendship. He offers to help her get more comfortable in front of a camera because her promotion requires her to do videos, and she really does not want to do that. She thinks that she's going to have to quit her job rather than try out something new, but Jasper's like, no. Like, we're going to get you more comfortable in your own skin and who you are, and you're going to do great. So he's a big improv guy. He helps with this improv group. He wants to open up his own theater. He is coming from like a bad breakup. He has no money. He's living with his friend, and he grew up in the foster system. All of that stuff has led him to where he is today in New Orleans, back with his group after having left them for a little while. But anyway, love them. Love them together, love them individually. We do follow both of their perspectives. This is not like a college romance. They are both adults in their mid to late 20s. So I love to see that. And I just think it's so much fun. We have some really deep and thought-provoking conversations and themes going on throughout this book. I do love the Tourette's rep and the ADHD rep that Jasper has. I love conversations, the conversations that we have regarding mental health and loneliness and grief and like figuring out who you are, you know? So I do love those conversations that are happening and being filtered in throughout the book. Also, I'm loving the chemistry between these two characters. I think they're both super entertaining, and I'm excited to kind of watch them admit that what they have is more than just physical. They want what they have to be more than just physical as well. So it's fun. I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if I'll finish it today, but I should easily be able to finish it within the next couple of days. Getting to the first 50% was super easy, so I do have high hopes for the rest of the book and my final thoughts on it, but so much fun. Definitely what I needed after the first 2 books that I read this month for my NetGalley vlog. But I'll hop back in here in a couple days, my final updates, and to wrap up this vlog, and hopefully I have all the good things to say, but I think I will. So stay tuned for my final thoughts. Alright y'all, so I finished reading Yes and I Love You a couple of nights ago. 2 nights ago? Yeah, 2 nights ago. And I am giving this book 4 stars. I already gave it 4 stars. I already reviewed the book on NetGalley. I honestly just thought this book was super cute. It was super fun, but also warmed my heart. It was very spicy. There's a scene with a Sharpie that I'm like obsessed with, and it's kind of living rent-free in my mind currently. I just thought it was so enjoyable. I'm glad that Jasper shaped up and figured out what really mattered to him, because this book does have a 3rd act conflict, and those a lot of times tend to be a hit or miss for me. I often find that they're unnecessary, or they add unnecessary drama to the plot that wasn't needed, that wasn't there before. And I think it's kind of like I don't know if stereotype is the right word, or stigma, but I feel like there's this understanding, people at least think there's like, I don't know, I feel as though people think, or authors think, or like it's just very general that couples need to go through a 3rd act breakup. But in real life, most people that I know who are in relationships or like are married, whatever, didn't go through a 3rd act breakup, you know? And I get that it's fiction, it's a 3rd act of their relationship, whatever. But I feel like, I don't know, it's almost like unrealistic to me for there to consistently be 3rd act breakups, because if there's a breakup at all, in real life, a lot of times, like, that couple is done. Like, there's no getting back together. That's just not how life works in real life. So I find it very interesting that so many romance books include 3rd act breakups. I think they're dumb a lot of times. I feel as though they often stem from miscommunication, which I hate as a trope. I hate the miscommunication trope anyway. So like, I'm already annoyed when that kind of stuff happens in books. But I feel like when a 3rd act breakup happens on top of miscommunication, I just get even more pissed off. I just feel like they're not necessary. We don't need 3rd act breakups in romance books, y'all. I do not know anybody in real life who's been through a 3rd act breakup, quote unquote, before getting back together. So anyway, wasn't a huge fan of that aspect, but I do think that in this book, it didn't annoy me as much because they weren't like officially broken up yet. And it was for like 24 hours while Jasper had to fly to another state to do something. So like that, it wasn't awful. It wasn't like they waited weeks, you know, and time jumped at the very end to like show the progression of time before they got back together. This one was like not super crazy. So I didn't hate it. It's just not my favorite part of romance books. But I finished this book, gave it 4 stars. I thought it was cute. Also, my voice, I never acknowledged this until just now. Definitely fighting a cold or something. And today at work was hard on my voice, so like I feel like it doesn't sound great. Anyway, but yeah, I finished this book, 4 stars. Easily the highlight of this reading vlog. I already reviewed it on NetGalley. My ratio is up to 67% now, maybe? Let me look. 67 or 68%, so yay me. Okay, let's see. Why am I signed out? Here we go. My feedback ratio is at 67%. I have been approved for 236 books and have sent my feedback for 159. I think once I review one more, I'll be up to 68%. I probably need to up my goal to reading 4 or 5 NetGalley books a month, but I'll deal with that later. But yeah, that concludes my NetGalley reading vlog for the month of February. As my voice slowly goes bye-bye. 3 arcs, 2 were definitely busts, which makes me kind of sad, but it's fine. The first book that I read, to wrap things up, Forestfall by Linda Clipstone, gave this book 3 stars. It was a sequel to a first book that I loved, so I'm a little bit bummed, frustrated by the second book, but that's okay. I wrapped up the duet, which I always struggle with, so can't complain about finishing a series. Then I read The Resort by Sarah Ox. And this book has been all around Bookstagram recently as a new release, and I just didn't love it. I thought there was no context given, or like no like build up between some of the reveals that I feel as though a lot of thrillers implement. And the epilogue was silly, so 2 stars for that one. And then finally, of course, I read Yes and I Love You by Ronnie Lauren, and I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was super cute, and I would definitely read more from this author at a later time, but yeah, that's this reading vlog. Woohoo! I have read 7 NetGalley arcs now this year, which might be about what I read last year between the entirety of 2023, so we're making progress. I can't complain. I didn't get any new arcs this month so far. It's only the 21st, but I don't anticipate getting any new arcs before the end of the month, so I should be good on that front. But yeah, I'm excited for March. I haven't even looked at what arcs I'll read for March. There's one that comes out in March that I will be reading, but the other 2 books for my vlog, I don't know what they'll be yet, but I will figure that out closer to March. But yeah, that's this reading vlog. Woohoo! If you have read any of these NetGalley arcs, feel free to comment down below and let me know your thoughts on them. If you read anything fun on NetGalley this month as well, feel free to share in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.